Have you ever noticed how easy it is to find what's wrong? What's wrong with a person? What's wrong with a situation? What's wrong with how something was handled? What's wrong with the service, the music, the sermon, the atmosphere, or even a decision that is made? And if we're honest, all of us can struggle with that. I know I can. It is easy to slip into a mindset where I'm quicker to critique than I am to encourage, quicker to notice what frustrates me than to stop and thank God for what He is doing. That is why Philippians chapter 2 and verse 14 is such a needed word. Paul says, "Do all things without murmuring or disputing." In other words, don't let your life be marked by a complaining spirit, a fault-finding spirit, a spirit that always seems to be circling around what is wrong. Now let me be clear. There is a difference between discernment and a critical spirit. Discernment sees clearly and wants to help, restore, protect, and pray. A critical spirit sees clearly too, but instead of helping, it tears down. It magnifies faults. It assumes the worst. It can turn frustration into a settled posture of the heart. And the truth is, that kind of spirit has consequences. It affects how we see people. Instead of seeing them through the lens of grace, we start seeing them mainly through the lens of irritation. It affects our relationships because people can begin to feel more evaluated than loved. It affects our homes, our friendships, our churches, and it affects our own joy too, because you can get to the place where you're surrounded by the evidences of God's goodness and still only see what bothers you. But maybe the greatest danger of a critical spirit is what it does in us. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 7, "Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye?" That's such a searching word because it reminds us how easy it is to become very aware of everybody else's weaknesses while staying mostly blind to our own pride, impatience, and harshness. And I think that's why this is something all of us need to bring before the Lord. Not just the person we think of as negative or hard to please, but us. Me, you. Because criticism can show up in subtle ways. Sometimes it comes out in our words. Sometimes it never gets said out loud, but it's there in our thoughts, our attitude, our tone, the posture of our spirit. So maybe a good question to ask today is this: am I becoming more gracious or more critical? When people walk away from conversations with me, do they feel encouraged or do they feel drained? Does my spirit make my home, my church, and my relationships lighter or heavier? And here's the good news. Jesus is full of grace for people like us. He doesn't ignore sin, but He deals with it redemptively. And when I remember how patient He's been with me, how merciful He's been with me, how often He has corrected me without throwing me away, it ought to shape the way I deal with other people. So today, ask the Lord to search your heart. Ask Him to show you where criticism has taken root. Ask Him to forgive the pride, the impatience, and the negativity that can grow in any of us. And ask Him to replace a critical spirit with a gracious one that still speaks truth, but speaks it with humility, gentleness, and love. Have a great Monday.